Hello, everyone. My name is Danny Smith. I'm a consultant psychiatrist and a professor of psychiatry at the University of Edinburgh. And we are bringing you this video today along with Bipolar Scotland and the International Society for Bipolar Disorders. And the topic of today's discussion is seasonality in bipolar disorder.
Hello everyone, my name's Erin Ferguson. I'm a volunteer with Bipolar Scotland and I myself live with bipolar disorder. So Danny, could you tell me a little bit about seasons in bipolar disorder and specifically what effects do changes in day length and seasons have on someone with bipolar disorder?
So we've always known that the way that humans regulate their physiology and their behavior is by, amongst other things, by detecting the length of day. We do this in winter and we do this in summer. But really important times of the year are the changes in day length that occur. For example, when we go from winter into springtime and when we go from summer into autumn. At those times of the year, there are relatively rapid day-on-day changes in the length of day and the amount of light that's available to people to perceive in the evening. And that's really important for bipolar disorder because the amount of light in the evening, if it's too much, can be quite dysregulating in terms of people's sleep and circadian rhythms and indeed their mood. And, there's evidence to suggest, for example, that as the day length increases into springtime, that a manic relapse is more common for many people with bipolar disorder. And conversely, when the days become shorter into autumn from the summer, we know that depression and depressive symptoms are more common for many people with bipolar disorder. So these are environmental factors that are really important for regulating things like sleep and mood and behavior. And knowing about them can really help people manage their bipolar disorder a lot better.
That's really interesting. I was just wondering though, you mentioned that it affects people with bipolar disorder, and obviously I'm a woman with bipolar disorder. Do you find that these effects are consistent across gender?
So it does seem to be the case that women are slightly more likely to experience seasonal changes in mood, like depressive symptoms, in the general population, as well as those who have mood disorders. And that is the case for what I've just described. But actually, we don't really fully understand why that would be the case. And I think that's an area that we need to do more research to find out why men and women might have slightly different seasonal changes in response to things like day length.
So women and men have different responses, but do all people living with bipolar disorder find that seasons affect them?
So, as you know, Erin, bipolar disorder is it encompasses a diverse range of experiences, doesn't it? So, probably not everyone is the answer. I think that there's probably a subgroup of people with bipolar disorder who are particularly sensitive to changes in light or too much exposure to light in the morning and the evening being unhelpful for that subgroup of people. But this is generally a very important topic, I think, because getting to know if you're one of those people who's very sensitive to too much light at night and to seasonal changes in mood, as I said, can be really helpful for understanding your pattern of mood problems across the seasons, as well as thinking about ways to change your light exposure in useful ways to try and manage that kind of those fluctuations in mood. So not everyone, probably a subgroup of people with bipolar disorder, but I think an important subgroup for sure.
I genuinely think that I might be part of that group. When I suffered from one of my biggest episodes in time, I went from being extremely depressed over the winter months to around April time, hitting a manic episode straight after a depressive episode. And I do think that seasons have been an impactful part of that because it's a pattern that's repeated throughout my life.
Right.
So I do think that the importance of this research can't be understated for people with bipolar disorder.
That's really interesting. So, and have you changed any aspects of your lifestyle with that knowledge, Erin? Have you been aware of
Well,
the changing seasons or?
actually, it was when you came to one of the Bipolar Scotland support groups and you spoke about these lamps that you can get that actually help you wake up in the morning. I
Yeah.
found that that actually helped me because it really helped me wake up and feel ready for the day. And obviously, sleep is so important for people with bipolar disorder as well. I think that's obviously a different topic, and in some respects, but there is some overlap with seasons. But having that in the winter has really helped my mood, and I know for a fact that it's helped other members of the group as well because they've spoke to me about it and we all discussed our lamps.
Yeah, interesting. No, that's really interesting. And of course, we live in Scotland, where during the winter months there can be very little daylight, can't there? And I think that's what's happening there is that little bit of light in the morning, those photons getting into your eye and helping regulate your sleep in the evening is really, really helpful for some people, isn't it? And it's particularly helpful if you live in the northern or very southern latitudes, of course, um, as we do in Scotland.
Definitely. And just touched on the geographical locations, do you find that as different geographical locations have different seasonal changes, do we see a difference in the effects of these changes on those living with bipolar disorder?
So there is some evidence to suggest that where you are in terms of latitude on the globe can affect your mood symptoms with bipolar disorder. So as you know, around the equator, it's more or less even 12 hours darkness, 12 hours light for most of the year, and it's fairly constant. But as you move more northerly or more southerly, um, as the seasons change, there can be quite rapid day-to-day changes in the amount of daylight, especially during those critical periods that I mentioned, from winter into spring and from summer into autumn or fall. So yeah, where you are in the world can determine this. And there's even some work to suggest that things like risk of depression, risk of mania, and even risk of suicidal thoughts and behavior can be determined by the rapid changes in day length that occur in different areas of the world.
That's so interesting. And so, as you said, that different areas of the world affect different people who are in those environments. How do you think someone living in an environment that maybe doesn't get as much light as another environment could manage the effects of the seasonal changes themselves?
So I think in this respect, knowledge really is power. So just having an awareness that day length and daylight and exposure to light and when you get your exposure to light is critical for regulating your sleep and your activity and your mood and your thinking. Just knowing that that's a big issue is important in and of itself. But then in terms of practical things that people could do, it's about really trying to make sure that in the winter, for example, they get enough early morning light. So like your lamps that you've just mentioned, for example. So making sure you get a good dose of photons in the morning in winter, and equally not getting too much light in the evening during summer and spring. So making sure that, you know, in Scotland, there are parts of Scotland, as you know, that basically have, for a short period in summer, will have daylight for most of the night, won't they? So in those areas, it'd be important for people to, you know, close their blinds, close their curtains, turn off their lights within the rooms. After 6 p.m., just have soft lighting and just letting your brain think, I guess, that you're in a more equatorial region in terms of the amount of daylight and the timing of the light that you expose your brain to. So simple measures like that, just simple measures to try and regulate the amount of light in the morning and the amount of light in the evening to make it more even across the 12 months of the year.
That's some really good advice. And I'm going to definitely try and implement that in my own life because, as I said, I'm someone that does feel that they're part of that group that are affected by seasonal changes.
Yeah.
But obviously, some people might not be able to manage it just themselves. So, could you tell me in what ways professionals could help manage the effects of seasonal changes for the person living with bipolar disorder?
Yeah, so there are many things that professionals can do. I think the most important factor is that awareness amongst professionals of these issues could be better, probably. And I hope that many clinicians get to see these educational videos because it's fair to say that many clinicians don't speak enough to their patients about seasonality and about daylight exposure and that kind of thing. So that's an important thing. But also, you know, there are innovations now around sort of um, blue light blocking glasses, for example, or indeed on your devices at night that can help to limit the amount of harmful light in the evening. And just general advice about, you know, the similar to what I told your group around using sort of lights in the morning to get you out of bed and to make sure you have enough exposure in the wintertime and stuff like that. So for me, the advice I often give is about getting outside, actually, getting high quality daylight in, especially in the winter, making an effort to get outside, get fresh air, get daylight onto your face, if possible, even for half an hour is really, really important. And I always tell people just to be careful in the summertime about being outside and being exposed to too much light as well. So yeah, I think professionals, the awareness amongst professionals could be better, but that's improving as time goes on, I think.
That's great. I remember when you came to my group, actually, you spoke about the importance of daylight and having that on your skin when you go outside and really getting that time outside when you can,
Yeah,
especially in Scotland with the weather and things
yeah,
like that. It can be quite difficult to
yeah,
motivate
yeah.
yourself to get out there, but it is so important, especially for us with bipolar disorder. So thank you so much, Professor Smith. I really appreciate you having this call with me today. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on?
No, Erin, I think that's been a very comprehensive run through seasonality and bipolar disorder, and hopefully lots of people will get back in touch with us. So for people watching, if you've got any comments on this, please leave them below in the feedback on the YouTube channel. But thanks, Erin. Thanks to ISBD. Thanks to
Thank you.
Bipolar Scotland. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Cheers.